Press the button, Frank.
Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our scientific passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, let's get into this. So first, we're going to let our guests introduce themselves to our listeners and viewers at home. We have first Mr. Isaac Kraft, returning guest.
Hello, I'm Isaac Kraft.
He likes long walks on the beach and interviews with vampires. You know, the usual.
No, mummies. We're not doing vampires this time.
Now you tell me. I got to cue out a different picture. Jeez. All right, not really. There we go. Somebody was hanging out with the mummies. Hit the like and subscribe.
Those are my peeps.
And they can't argue with you. They just grunt.
Right.
I like it. Next, we have the many voices and names and personalities of Miss Jana S. Brown.
Hi, guys. I am so happy to be back today. I'm Jana S. Brown. I also write under Jenna Ray. Most of my spectral fiction is under Jenna Ray, and I've been at it for a long time, and I can't wait to talk about the mummies. It's a far underserved population, and we're going to do it tonight.
Hell yeah.
All right, and last but not least, we have published author, voice narrator, lady of many talents, Miss Teri K. Jobe.
Yes, I am Teri K. Jobe, and this is the accent I've been doing a lot today, so you're going to have to put up with it for 5 minutes.
Nice.
No. What would a mummy sound like? That's the accent we need.
There's no words. How do I introduce myself with no words? Although I guess that's the challenge, isn't it?
Some mummies
Challenge
talk.
accepted.
Well, you know what? We'll save that for when we actually dive into the topic. Do mummies talk? Now we gotta hit that up.
They do.
That's true.
So the next part of the introduction, dear listeners, how we first found them, and we hit the Wayback Machine, and we just don't remember. It's getting old sucks. We forget things, but we've known them for a while, and they've been on the show a lot. So maybe you could find the episode where we still remembered things. That about sum it up, Nick?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to go back in my brain here, in my memory, and I'm just like,
I'm pretty sure we met all of them through Three Ravens Discord. Jokes aside.
I think that's where it started many moons ago.
All right,
Nice.
And now the religion question. Are you ladies and gentlemen ready for this?
Oh, always.
The Bloody Mummy's
Bring it.
Tomb, The Mummy's Curse, or Dawn of the Mummy? We went old school and classic.
I am going to say none of the above and go with Boris Karloff's The Mummy.
Excellent choice.
I'm also going none of the above because Brendan Fraser's The Mummy makes me ever so happy. There are so many pretty boys there. And some very pretty girls, too. So, I'm pretty agnostic.
What was the Borlos? What? I got to write that down for show notes.
Boris
Karloff.
Karloff, The Mummy.
Boris Karloff.
he also played Frankenstein.
Hmm.
He did a lot of monsters.
And Dracula at one point. He did. He was kind
Pretty
of
much
the shiznit
everything.
for that. He did creepy well.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but we'll take it. All right. So with that being said, Isaac.
I'll go with Curse of the Mummy.
Excellent choice. Nick.
Ooh, what are the options again?
You have the Mummy, the Bloody Mummy's Tomb, The Mummy's Curse, or Dawn of the Mummy.
Well, the Bloody Mummy's Curse.
You just
Tomb.
combined two of those.
I like them
That'd
both.
be Dawn of the Bloody Mummy's Curse.
There you go.
I
Part
hate
two.
that movie. All right. I actually, I would ask
The
Stabby,
Return.
She's still indisposed, probably making herself some coffee. But I liked Dawn of the Mummy. Bloody Mummy's Tomb. It didn't hold my interest, and I have not seen The Mummy's Curse, but we were talking about it in the pre-show. Maybe we should visit some of these classics of the Monster Mash era and just do some review episodes. That could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Retro Rewind.
Yeah, and we've got Halloween coming up, so we need to stack some spooky episodes.
Oh yeah, we're already taking notes.
Absolutely. All right, and this is the one that will make Jana's heart go ew. If she still has a heart, we don't know yet. But because we're polytheistic, The Mummy with Tom Cruise or Brendan Fraser.
Oh.
Oh, Brendan Fraser all day. It was a better movie.
Okay.
I like them both for different reasons, but Brendan Fraser.
Isaac?
Tough choice. Probably still Brendan Fraser.
Okay. Nick?
I'm gonna go. Yeah, Brendan Fraser.
I mean, I feel like saying Tom Cruise just to be contrarian, but I actually like the movie with Brendan Fraser better.
They the one with Tom Cruise is okay. I like that.
Here's the thing: the one with Tom Cruise, that's more based on The Jewel of Seven Stars by Bram Stoker, which is slightly different.
Yeah, but was it Rachel Weisz was the female?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you know.
Rachel Weisz is a librarian and later in, filmy desert clothes, and she was a cutie, and there was good chemistry with the entire cast there, and it told a story that while comedic also had a lot of horror aspects to it. And so they balanced the comedy and the horror and the action adventure so well. And that's my problem with the Tom Cruise one, is that it feels unbalanced. It was a hard one to watch and go, what am I really watching? And that was my problem, is I wasn't sure what it was they wanted me to feel. And when a movie doesn't help me know what I'm supposed to feel, then I tend to check out.
Yeah.
And then they had Patricia Velasquez is Anuk Saman, however you pronounce that.
Anox on a moon.
Anox on the moon.
Yeah,
Anox on the moon.
I can't pronounce that, so we're just going to go with what they said. But yeah,
did you have trouble saying Quisak Harak on the Dune episode? I think Arab words just kind of slip they escape your tongue.
Well, when I was in the Army, my platoon sergeant taught me that I could speak the international language of love very well in 16. And if you grab them by the balls, the rest follow. I didn't really need to learn to communicate as effectively in other games.
Everyone speaks gun to the face, I guess.
Yep, and like when we were doing the old podcast where we were doing the D&D, was it old school? Was it sci-fi writers play old school D&D? I could never pronounce Kopesh to save my life. So I own one though, so hats off for me. But all right. So with that, we've got one more religion question. If you stumbled upon a tomb and you knew there was treasure inside, do you open it or do you leave it closed?
I think that's going to depend very much on what the treasure is, because treasure is a pretty loose definition of what could be in there.
Shiny things.
Okay.
No, I want to know. Yeah, open it.
Me too. All right, what about you, Isaac?
It depends. Is it cursed or not, the treasure? Are people watching me? What time is it?
Are people watching?
Am I hungry?
I don't know.
Those are good
It's way too
questions.
complicated.
That seems like a cop out, but we'll take it. What about you, Nick? You opening it?
Well, yeah, as long as no one's reading from the Book of the Dead, which hopefully is found inside there, so I know nobody's reading from it when I open it. Yeah. I don't care if it's cursed. I was in the Army. I was already cursed.
I mean, Bill's got to get paid. I think I'm opening it too.
That's right. My love of money far surpasses my common sense sometimes.
So say we all.
Well, and the vast curiosity. You got to know, what's behind the door.
Oh, yeah. When I was in Cairo, I was going in. There was a guy who's like, hey, man, for $15, I'll take you to this dig site that isn't open to the public. $15, here you go. I want to see this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
sometimes that's a scam, but like I said.
Oh, yeah. As soon as we climbed down into the hole, the guy pulled a knife. But me and my buddy both had knives that were bigger than his. And we both pulled our knives out. We're like, I didn't think this was going to be on my bingo card, but hell, let's go. And then he left.
This is where you get to play your Spaceballs line and say, my Schwartz is bigger than yours.
If I would have thought about it and been like it's one of those moments where if I could go back and replay that, say really cool gangsta stuff, like some Crocodile Dundee shit, like that's not a knife. This is a knife.
Yeah, when I told you, like, when I went to the porta potty when I was in Iraq, and I didn't have toilet paper, so I'm leaving it about halfway between my truck and the John, and a mortar round lands in that porta potty, and of course we're all covered in blue goo and other stuff.
Oh.
And all I could think of was, well, that'd have been a shitty way to go. You would think in a moment, like, you would have something witty, some good one-liner, like in all the movies.
No,
that's a shitty way to go.
I think all those badass lines come from experiences or similar experiences that the writer had and wish they would have said at that moment. Because I've done that a million times. Like, oh man, in this scenario, in this comic, I should have said this, and it misses the mark. It's like, because all those types of experience, especially when you're in combat, we deploy downrange and stuff, weird, crazy things happen. And you're like, man, if I could just go back 30 seconds and say this line, it would have been awesome.
Right?
Yeah, but sometimes self-preservation kicks in.
Yeah. Sometimes. True. I would say about 99% of the time. It's like, oh, bad things are happening. That can kill me.
In this instance, self-preservation was get a shower, because who knows what kind of diseases were covering me.
Yeah, you.
All right. We're going to move on to something less disgusting, and we're going to talk about coffee. So, what is everyone drinking for their caffeinated beverage of choice this summer? Jana, I'm going to guess you're going to have Dr. Pepper.
It's always Diet Dr. Pepper, but they've come out with a Dr. Pepper coconut, and it is the shiznit. It is really, really good. So you put Diet Dr. Pepper and Dr. Pepper coconut and a fresh lime, and I'm set. It is a beautiful summer drink. Put lots of ice cubes on that. And my husband loves me, and so for Christmas, he got me one of the countertop ice makers. So I have pebble ice all the time, and thus my summer is complete. That's true love is the man that gets you the good ice.
That's the good ice.
Or woman, or whatever.
I dig it. Okay.
Hey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Isaac? What are you drinking this summer?
Somewhere between bottled water and K-Cup Javalia coffee.
Okay. All right. Teri?
I've actually been on a chocolate milk kick, which is weird because I never drank chocolate milk when I was a kid. That's just never something we had around. So sometimes if I'm having my coffee at home, I'll just take a little chocolate milk and put just a dollop of that in there, along with the stevia.
That sounds delicious.
It is.
If I had the calories left in the day, I might be doing that right now. But anyway, we will move on. Nick, what are you doing this hot summer?
For caffeinated beverages, huh? Probably Arnold Palmer.
Okay.
It's like one of my favorite summertime drinks.
Yeah.
If you put vodka in it becomes a Phil Mickelson.
Stabby.
He's a notorious drunk golfer.
Yep, I know who he is because I watched that Adam Sandler movie where he was the golfer, and they talked about him. Happy Gilmore, is that it?
Yes.
Happy Gilmore. All right, Stabby, what's your caffeinated beverage of choice?
Coffee.
Duh. Coffee. Like, what are you drinking?
Right now, I am doing bourbon flavored coffee brain coffee. I ordered the whole beans so I could grind them up myself, and I put a couple of the blueberry beans in with it, and it tastes like blueberry chocolatey bourbon deliciousness.
I am on the hunt for blueberry creamer. So that way I can mix that with the blueberry coffee, see if that makes me like it more. Otherwise, I'm just going to mail you the K-Cups.
I don't have a Keurig. I'm old school when it comes to my coffee. I have a Mr. Coffee.
Oh, you said old school. I thought you were going to talk about like you've got a percolator over the fire, but you know.
I have one of those in the garage, but I also have a French press. But I do not have a Keurig. I gave it away. I hated it so much.
You know, I just realized that if the apocalypse comes, I'm screwed because I do not have a percolator for the fire. I need to rectify this.
Oh, yep.
Oh my goodness, how have I failed myself? We can do better. We can do better.
But I will tell you this, JR, if you use peppermint mocha coffee creamer in the blueberry coffee, it does something for it.
Okay. All right. All right. And Stabby, since you weren't here for the religion question, you were making that caffeinated beverage of choice. Religion question. Are you ready? The Mummy with Tom Cruise or Brendan Fraser?
Brendan Fraser.
Okay. We all agreed. Different reasons, but we all agreed. If you stumble upon a mummy tomb, are you opening it?
She is.
Yeah, probably. I'll probably read the book too. But
all right.
I don't know
And so,
if you guys heard, but Rachel Weisz and Brendan Fraser are coming back for another Mummy movie.
I've heard rumor about that. I'd be there for that.
I'm down. They're, like we said earlier, their chemistry together in the movie was believable.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes
Definitely.
the chemistry between leading actors is like, this is like they hate each other situation. And then, of course, you find out later that the actor and actress really did hate each other. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But, yeah, I'm still on my cold brew kick right now. I've been doing I give myself one a week because I can afford the calories. But I do the cold brew from Dunkin' with 4 creamer and 4 vanilla, sugar-free vanilla. I really need to figure out how to make cold brew at home, because that is too good. But then they add like the foamed milk at the top. It's almost like whipped cream, but it's not.
It's not.
So if you go to your local grocery store, go to the whipped cream section, they have a cold foam that you use that's just like the cold foam that they put on top of the coffee at Starbucks.
I stopped shopping at Starbucks because I don't want to overpay for burnt coffee. I've been doing Dunkin' lately, but same.
I said like Starbucks. You put it on top. It looks like it's whipped cream, but it's not whipped cream. It's cold foam, and it just melts into your coffee, and you can watch it just slowly melt into it.
All right, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. All right. And with that, let us talk about the topic that brought us here. So first, we're going to show the picture again. Nick's friends. He's old. We told you that. You didn't believe me. This is his high school classmate.
I took that picture.
I believe you. All right. So obviously we're here to talk about mummies. So first, let's get this out of the way. What is a mummy?
A mummy is the remains of a human from different parts of the world, most stereotypically Egypt, that have been wrapped and preserved in such a way that they still exist as bodies. That's a terrible explanation.
Yeah, basically the gist of it. Everyone good to accept that? Do we have a quorum?
It's a body that has been through the mummification process for preservation.
All right. Did any other cultures besides Egypt do the mummification?
All over the Middle East, and even up into places where you had Siberia and that kind of thing. Any place where you're looking at a really, really dry environment, that's the way that you deal with them. You suck out the internal juices and you mummify them, or it's a type of mummification, because that's going to be your best preservation, because the rotting is otherwise a problem. And trying to dig tombs in earth gets really hard, which is why you had pyramids and you had other things that were built above ground in order to take care of that. But your bodies are, they're going to desiccate anyway. And so then it became a part of religious ceremonies to make it a formal thing. So yes, you see it all over. You see it in the tundra. You see it in all over any place that you got desert cultures. Mummification is a thing.
I know.
And also, go ahead, man.
They found some mummified bodies in South American mountains, but I don't think they were much like the bog people. I think those were more unintentional, like they inadvertently created it versus in doing it on purpose.
Yeah, they found mummies in Peru, and even in Asian cultures like in Cambodia and Laos, they found some mummies there too. So it always like baffles the anthropologist. That's like, that's weird, because these are usually, like Jana said, they're usually found in dry environments.
Yeah, which means often in those cultures they think that it was a religious kind of something when mummification is chosen, versus general dehydration of a body that's going to happen in any of those arid cultures anyway. And so properly taking care of them was the way to do it.
Okay. So why do you think that mummies are such a popular trope that you see them all over horror and paranormal and all the spooky goodness.
Well, I
Well,
think
it
there's
connect-
kind of.
once.
Go ahead, Jana.
it connects to a lot of the different things we've talked about as far as the monsters go to, which is that question of what happens after death, because we see zombies, we see mummies, we see vampires, we see all of these things. That's the question of when you put something down, what happens when it doesn't stay down. And so we're talking about, slightly different cultures when we talk about mummies coming back, but it's still that same idea of what is there beyond death, and if there's nothing, can they come back? And if there is something, if there's a soul that could be put back in that body, I mean, you get all sorts of interesting questions, but it's still connected to that. What is death, and how do we treat it, and what happens if it doesn't stay where it's supposed to?
There's also, at least in Egyptian mythology, the more prominent idea of the afterlife to begin with, and that's the one I'm most familiar with. So it's already planted there that, hey, that could happen. And that's part of their whole theology for ancient Egypt, is that one of the gods, and I forget which one it was, I want to say Osiris, was cut apart, put back together, it went through the mummification process, and then he was back. So it's already planted there.
If it's good for the gods, it's good for me.
Yeah.
I know they were important in medieval Europe because during the Middle Ages, late Middle Ages, and Renaissance, and up into Victorian era, they used powdered mummies. Like they take a mummy and they powderize it, and they put that in a lot of medicines. Which, could you imagine, like eating dead people? Is that cannibalism at that point? I don't know.
It's gross. It was in makeup as well. A lot of your makeups ended up with dried up people in them, and then you apply it to your face, and it's supposed to keep you youthful.
I actually
you can read all sorts of things in that. Go.
I actually just watched a true crime documentary a couple days ago about medical cannibalism. It's really big in like South Korea, Thailand, stuff like that. But it's called medical cannibalism. And basically, if your body can naturally heal itself, why could somebody else's body not heal you as well? So if your eyes are bad and your eyes won't heal themselves, then who's to say Teri's eyes won't heal me? That's the theory on that.
Wait, and people do that on purpose?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ugh. Yeah, I'll pass.
I'll send you the link, JR. You'll love listening to it because it's from one of your favorites. It's from Miss Rotten Mango herself.
She's gotten her hooked. She's gotten us hooked on these true crime podcasts when we're working. So I'm just saying, if Nick ever disappears, check.
We'll never find him.
No, this is my life, 24/7.
Hard drive will do him no good.
So, what was when did everyone here, like as consumers of the product, when did you guys first discover the mummies and the concept therein? I'll go first. For me, it was Scooby-Doo.
Yep, Scooby-Doo, 1977.
Scooby-Doo. For me, my mom liked watching the old Universal monsters on AMC way back in the day. Every Saturday, they would play all the Universal horror movies. And that's the first time besides Scooby-Doo, when I actually saw a live action mummy was The Mummy with Boris Karloff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what my first one was, and it was either that one, the Boris Karloff mummy that my dad got on VHS, or it was the Brendan Fraser, and I want to say it was Boris Karloff. I'm pretty sure.
You led a deprived life if you took waiting until Brendan Fraser to see it.
We don't judge here.
That was 30-some years ago. I'm blonde. What do you want?
No. That movie is not that old. You hush your mouth.
It's only like 25 years old. 1999 for The Mummy.
That was like 10 years ago.
Oh, I didn't say that movie was that old. I said I'm that old. Do you think I can remember this?
All right, Stabby, what was your first mummy that you remember seeing?
I'm down to answer this question, but I want Isaac to answer it first.
I was really young in the 80s, and I would think It might have been Scooby Doo, but more clear was the mummy from the Monster Squad.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Good movie.
Yeah.
All right, Stabby.
I hit the wrong button.
Happens.
So my grandfather was the reason that I absolutely love all monsters, and he loved the Universal monsters, and I love the Universal monsters. I have the Bride of Frankenstein tattooed on the front of my leg, but I didn't actually start with the Universal monsters when it came to the Mummy. I actually started with the Munsters. That was the first time I ever saw a mummy was in the Munsters. So
Okay.
it started a whole different type of love affair with monsters because they were funny.
Didn't they have mummies in the Addams Family? Wasn't there a mummy in that movie too? Am I remembering wrong?
There was.
I think so, yeah.
He stayed living in the graveyard. He lived in the graveyard. Like he would go back to bed.
Okay. All right. Well, now that we got that out of the way, so everyone keeps coming back to the mummies, but what do you think is the most iconic, like the Mummy with Brendan Fraser? Because that's, we're all about the right age, but what do you think is the most iconic, like the premier movie about a mummy? Which one would it be? Is it going to be that with Brendan Fraser, or you think it's going to be something else?
Yes, I go back to Brendan Fraser. Now taking him out of it in the action adventure, because they really did engage with what does it mean to be a mummy. It was used as a punishment in that case. It was all tied to the Book of the Dead. It was tied to the mythology. They had Coptic jars. They had the Coptic jars that he had to collect in order to reform himself, and all of that is really important to the background of what mummification is and why it was important. And in that case, they weren't just treating it like a standard monster movie where, again, the mummy is very much like zombies. It's just that zombies are gooey and gross and mummies are desiccated and gross. But we very often see them doing the arms out in front of them, the mine, whatever. They're searching for something so they can go back to sleep. But I liked that in the Brendan Fraser movie, there was a point to the whole thing. He wanted something, and the different points of mummification were there. He had to gain things by taking eyes and then tongues and everything from other people. So we're getting that cultural significance, and we didn't get a lot of that in a lot of the others where they're just treated as another monster.
That's fair. The Mummy with Brendan Fraser is iconic because for anyone that wonders what a sandstorm is like, the opening scene, minus the face of the dead guy coming out of the wall.
Oh no, I saw it. I saw the dead guy face. I was, ugh.
But yeah, that's what a sandstorm looks like in real life. I've seen a few of those. All right, so I think the reason that they're popular is, like you said earlier, Jana, is it goes back to what happens when we die. It's the great unknown, and it's just one of many attempts to find answers. Do you think we'll ever get to a point where mummies stop being cool, since they haven't been used in a long, long time as far as a process for the dead? At a certain point in time, even the last mummy is going to be nothing but ash and dust.
So you're talking like as a story vehicle, as like something to make fiction out of?
It's something that both the story vehicle or that humans in general are fascinated by, because part of the reason it's fascinating is you can go to a museum and see a mummy on display.
Yeah. And I think the discovery of mummification of like the mummies was like in the early or late 1800s and early 1900s. So if you think about it, like on the timeline, they're fairly new. They're a fairly new discovery. So I think we haven't fully explored the things we can do with them as a driving force for a story. And they're constantly finding out new stuff about the culture. They're finding new crypts, and they're finding like old pyramids and stuff like that, which was the giant tomb for the pharaohs and all that. So, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I hope it doesn't. I don't want to live in that world, So, and especially with like Gen Z and Gen Alpha who think that they're discovering stuff. I call them the Magellan or the Columbus generation because they always think they're discovering crap and they're not. Stuff's been around for a while. I think eventually they're going to get older and they're going to find some old VHS or Blu-ray of The Mummy. Either I don't care which version, just pick one, and then that's going to spark something in them too. So.
And there's nothing that says, well, we won't circle back to it again. I know there are companies out there that'll take pets that have passed on and basically do taxidermy on them, which you could technically argue is an updated version of mummification.
Absolutely.
So it's not that far a leap to be doing that to humans once again. At least in my opinion.
I'm officially putting it in my will that I want to be mummified when I die now.
You don't, because then we have to stick a red hot poker up your nose.
I'm dead.
Swirl it about,
Round around.
and pull your brains out through your nose.
I was trying to figure out how to work that in, and I hadn't figured it out yet. Well done.
But and I want a pyramid built for me.
So noted.
Here's the thing. Here's the
I can
thing.
do that for you now. It's just gonna be out of twigs and sticks.
I think they call it a teepee at that point, but here's the thing. When it comes to mummies, you get the mummy that's, slow and arms out and very stiff, very Frankenstein-like, or you get the creepy mummies that run up walls and on ceilings and can jump really far. And I think both of them have their place in cinema, in books, in everything. But I think my love for the Mummy with Brendan Fraser was they did their research. They knew not just that there was a mummy, but they knew the different spells that they could put to keep somebody's soul from passing into the other life. They had their I can never remember what they called the jars, but they had the jars that they would have. Yeah. And they had their, their heart and their brain and everything in their little jars. Like they did their research. And I loved that about them, about all of them, was that you're sitting there going, that's why they did that. And then you're like, hold on, wait a minute. Hey, Google, is this like why we actually did this? And they're like, yeah, that's why. I was like, gotta give it to their their people. They did their research.
And we call the actual spelling is canopic, so Canopic, canopic jars, but everyone I've ever heard pronounces it Coptic.
Mm-hmm.
Write it down in the
I did.
chat so I can put it in the show notes.
But yeah, so I don't know. I think it's fascinating as a story trope. Do you prefer the mummies that can talk and are semi-sentient, or the shambling, just basically a toilet paper wrapped zombie?
Well, if you look at Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, you get kind of a mixture because the main mummy can speak. The ones that he controls to try to stop Brendan Fraser and everybody else from, putting him back in his grave, they don't speak. They just scream a lot. The soldiers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the question of when a mummy comes back, what's the aspect there? Is it fully re-ensouled? In which case, I think that speech becomes something that makes a lot more sense. Or is it something that can be summoned back where it's not working under its own drive, in which case we may not get that, because then we're looking at that it's the connection to the summoner that is providing the intellect, that is providing whatever else. And so in my mind, a lot of times the ones that we see that are monstrous, they're fulfilling something. There's something that they need to get back so that they can go back to rest, or they've been brought back to life by somebody else, even if it's by somebody has disturbed their tomb. Someone has taken off with a Coptic jar. Someone has taken off with something they shouldn't. And there the focus is get the thing and go back to bed. So I think it kind of depends on, what is their focus, what is their drive. And then for me, that says, okay, this is going to be an intelligent thing and is going to then have the ability to speak beyond the coins, because that's the one I remember from Scooby-Doo.
Jules.
Yep. All he could say was coins because somebody had stolen his coin.
Well, don't mess with the mummy's coins or his jewels.
Yeah, don't take his stuff.
Yeah, usually the motivations for mummy stories, it's either a curse or it's necromancy.
Yeah.
And usually they're kind of following the same, especially with Brandon Fraser's The Mummy. Imhotep was a high priest, and he was sentenced to death for doing naughty stuff. So it's a curse that brought him back because there was a book. And then once he was able to gather the body parts that he needed to do stuff, then he was able to use his necromancy to bring back the husks of the soldiers and all that stuff. So it's like really cool stuff. And his girlfriend who ditched him.
Because again, that was the drive. The drive there was that he wanted that connection with her again, and so that was an interesting kind of thing. That once he had everything he needed in order to be an empowered mummy that wasn't all wrapped up, then he used those powers. Then he became the high priest again and used those powers to try to bring her back.
That's actually
an interesting story.
One of the things that I think made that movie resonate for so many young men is it's every man's greatest fear. You give up everything for the woman you love, and she betrays you in the end. She was basically a fair weather friend, and that's, I think, what makes it such a compelling story for most people.
As they say in the hood, that girl's for the tombs.
So what about you, Isaac?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
I'm just trying to get you to speak. So what is it about Mummies that makes it compelling for you?
It's still all the above that you had just said, but at the same time, it seemed like it was more like vengeance with Brendan Fraser's Mummy. In addition to getting his dead girlfriend back, having with the in the Brendan Fraser movie, he has the ability to have power over the 10 plagues of Egypt. Sort of like you thought I was bad before. Look at this, and also similar to the one with the Tom Cruise movie, with the female mummy, who seems to be even worse than Imhotep, almost like it's sort of like maybe they're going through an evolution of going from a rotting corpse that's wrapped up to something with that looks not nearly as scary as it really is, or they're trying to make it as scary.
Okay. Well, while you think deeply, dear listener, dear viewer, dear listener, we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we'll jump right back into these undead, these creatures. Boom!
Here comes your next romp in the graveyard. In Hunters for Hire, a new urban fantasy adventure by best-selling author Jonathan Yanez. A guy down on his luck puts sign twirling and rideshare driving on the back burner to track down the supernatural for a pretty penny. Find out what happens when John Hunter enters the secret underworld. Download your copy and start listening today. Now available on Amazon and Audible.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. Now let's get back talking about mummies. So obviously we see them in horror because it's a scary monster. Have you seen mummies used a lot in paranormal fiction? Where it's actually set in modern times, other than something like The Mummy? I mean, is that about the only place you see it?
Um,
I think so.
The
At least me
museum.
personally, yeah.
Well, you had mummies in yours, JR.
Did I? Oh yeah, the one I wrote with James. It had a mummy in
Yeah.
it. And I think, but that's set in fantasy Egypt essentially, so that works. What was that you were typing, Isaac? You could join
Not
in.
at the museum.
That's right. They did have a mummy there.
Yeah.
Anne Rice did The Mummy. The Ramses the Damned. So
Okay.
Anne Rice had a
I didn't
mummy.
read that one.
And I know there are others. Yeah, it's interesting. You don't see the mummy as much as a romantic pairing. And so you don't see it much in paranormal romance or that kind of thing. And why that is, given that vampire
Ew.
is dead. Well, okay, but I've seen zombies, and
Oh, yeah.
we even had movies about zombies in rom-coms. But to make a mummy sexy again, you've got to have something that gives it that, for lack of a better term, a rehydration. And so it hasn't been as popular in urban fantasy or in paranormal romance because there's a process there you've got to think through. And there's also a huge cultural difference. It gets talked about in Alana Andrews because they deal a lot with Babylon and with Middle East culture. But a lot of people, a lot of urban fantasy writers don't delve into that enough, so it doesn't become naturally a part of their setting, and so we don't see it nearly as much as a monster. Now I am challenging myself and thinking I need to totally bring a mummy into the piece I'm working on.
I was just thinking that. I don't think I've, other than that, I don't think I've written, other than the one in Egypt, a mummy. But now I want to see. Although you could use a mummy in a good commercial spot if you're doing a moisturizing cream. That could be a fun little commercial.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't
Yeah.
just rehydrate them, stick them in the bathtub, and
It puts the
48 hours.
lotion on its skin.
Flash forward 2 seconds, and now it's a beautiful person.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
we could make this work. We really could.
Although she's
It's a
not
Jergens
good.
commercial in the making.
Right? It could be like a Jergens version of the "You're not yourself when you're angry" or when you're hungry.
Yeah, like a Snickers bar.
Exactly. You're a mummy, and then you get all lotioned up, and now you're sexy.
Calgon, take me away.
Woohoo!
Yeah. I actually did write a modern mummy short story for one of the Three Ravens anthologies. Didn't make it in, but it was fun to write. Trailer park people meet the mummy.
Oh, nice.
Chaos ensues.
Shut up and take my money.
Just get it out there. Like, I'd read it.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a lead magnet, my dear. Get people.
Yeah,
into
maybe
it
it'll
even
turn into
better.
something later. We
It'd be
shall
fun.
see. To be fair, it came from the trailer park. There's some strong contenders in there.
To be fair.
That's true.
I mean, I've dated a few trailer park girls, so I get it.
Hell yeah.
We know.
I
I mean, no, that's horrible, JR. You shouldn't date
Oh, no.
trailer park people.
So, do you see with monsters becoming more popular, you're seeing more of that kind of stuff on television again? Do you think we're going to end up with a resurgence of mummies specifically, or are we going to stick with the vampires and the werewolves and the iconic?
I think we're due.
Yeah, I think we will.
In the cycle of movie monsters, we've exploited vampires to death. We're just about done with zombies. So my money's either on werewolves or mummies. Or werewolf mummies. Put your hands together.
Well,
Make that.
werewolves are very, very hot. They are the top of the list when you look at urban fantasy tropes and paranormal romance tropes. Shifters are right at the top as being they're kind of the hottest classification of critters for right now. So I wouldn't be surprised for us to see more movies and stuff following shifters first. But we are due some good mummy stuff sooner or later again.
It'd be
What do you
nice if
think,
they did
Isaac?
another adaptation of The Jewel of Seven Stars by Bram Stoker.
Yeah.
That's a good one. And it's different.
Mm-hmm.
So
that seems to be the book that a lot of the mummy type movies or stories try to base their lore off of. So it's I would love to see that as a movie.
Yeah.
Like done correctly.
Yes, not as the strict action flick that the Tom Cruise movie was.
Yeah.
Not bad for an action flick, but still.
Nick, since you are the purveyor of all things comic related, are comics mummies a thing or no?
Yeah. We had Carissa Grant. We had her on the show. Her comic books deal with a lot of mummies and Egyptian mythology and things like that. Mummies are a good trope. They're a good character thing to have. Like I have a character that eventually will summon up mummies. He's my Egyptian Doctor Strange. So he's powered by Bast. That's the god that kind of just like, hey, you're gonna be my dude, and I'm gonna give you magical powers. So I use them too. Eventually they'll make it to print and people can read them. But in my head, they're glorious.
Well, I mean, that's important in your head. I mean,
yeah. Well, and I'll draw them too, so they'll also be glorious.
So are the tropes different when you see mummies used in comics?
No, they pretty much follow the same like standard stats. And then you have ones that like we talked, necromancy versus curses, you know, and a lot of those just kind of are in a circle. So it starts with a curse, goes into the necromancy, and vice versa. So, yeah, they follow like the baseline stats. They're mummified. But here's another thing too, because like little unknown fact about Nick. Nick has a degree in anthropology, and I had no idea what I was going to use that for. But more, yeah, for marrying Stabby, with a focus in the anthropology of religion. So we did study a lot of those religions, and I find those things fascinating. So the lore of ancient Egypt and the mythology is that, okay, so not everybody was worthy of mummification. You had to be of someone of status. It was like I'd say it's close to a caste system. So like they have in India. So like only the upper echelon society could afford mummification, because you get mummified, you get put into a sarcophagus that was put into another sarcophagus, and then if you were royalty, you were put inside a pyramid, because that's all those were, was giant tombs, usually by family or houses. So you deal with that, and their harems and their some of their servants too, who are meant to serve them in the afterlife, and that goes into the religion aspect of it and what they believed, you know, and all their earthly treasures and belongings and all that. That's why there was a lot of grave robbing when we started like excavating these pyramids and getting into these tombs. You had a lot of grave robbers and people digging all around there looking for that, you know, that cashy money. So.
Do you see them in a lot of role-playing games? Since we got a couple gamers on the show, is that something you see a lot of?
Dude, I saw a bunch of them in because I've been playing Diablo 4. There's a bunch in there. Mm-hmm. Used to see them in Gauntlet.
Yeah,
a very old school game. For those of you that remember Gauntlet, usually at the pizzeria. You know, I lost many a coin to that. You see quite a bit.
You see him in Dungeons and Dragons, you see him in Pathfinder. A lot of times the modules that get written will be specific to different cultures. Like we just finished playing one that was Russian themed, and so we had, you know, Baba Yaga and all those kinds of things. And we've done one that was Egyptian themed, and so you were fighting mummies and various other themed things. Way back when Wizards of the Coast did... It was when they did Vampire the Masquerade and all those kinds of things, they decided to do mummies. And it was a good idea, but really, really badly executed. It was our least favorite of all of the different books that they did. But they did try it, and we tried to play it, and now we're done. But yeah, so you do see it there, but usually as an antagonist, as a creature that you fight.
To kind of touch base on a couple of things that we just spoke about, with Nick talking about the religions that they do it, they even touch on that in Brendan Fraser's Mummy when Benny comes face to face with Imhotep. And he pulls out all his necklaces and he starts speaking all the different languages with the different religions. Okay. Okay, next one. And then finally Imhotep is like, oh, you speak the
The language of the slaves.
the slave
Sorry.
language.
I'll
Yeah.
stop
And I
quoting.
was like, you're fine, Teri. I gotta tell you something after the show. You'll get a kick out of it. But anyways. But I loved that they did actually bring that little portion of it into the movies, that he's sitting there going, okay, not Christianity, not this one, not that one, going through all of them trying to figure out, and they do touch base that he even tried Hindi. And it, I was like, I love that, because all those religions that he touches base on, there is this type of mummification in each of those religions. And the other thing I was going to touch base on is we were trying to figure out mummies that weren't strictly curse or necromancy is Hotel Transylvania. The mummy was played by David Spade, and all he wanted to do was party.
David Spade wants to party?
I think it was David Spade. I'm not even 100% sure because I can't remember what the mummy's name was.
But did he party like it was 1999?
No, David Spade was the Invisible Man, I think.
Oh, he was the Invisible Man. Who was the mummy? Buscemi? Was it Buscemi?
Yeah, the cool
Adam Sandler, so all of his buddies are.
Oh, of course. But that was one of the funnest mummies that I have ever seen, because all he wanted to do was party, and they kept making
Keegan-Michael Key.
He always, they kept making jokes about sand in places it shouldn't be.
So are there any franchises that have the mummy as the POV, or is it always the sort of unspeaking, unfeeling, existential angst inducing character? I don't think I've ever seen a mummy as a POV, with the exception of maybe as like the cartoon stuff for kids.
I know. I don't think I've personally seen it. It's like Rule 39. It's got to be out there. It's got to be out there in something. We just haven't found it yet, or it's so obscure. Because I don't think, like, I personally don't want to see the mummy's POV. Because I was raised that they were the bad guy. And two of my favorite franchises, Boris Karloff and the Brendan Fraser movies, Imhotep was the bad guy. He was the mummy. And I liked seeing them as the antagonist. But it would also be cool, which maybe, since we got a bunch of writers here in this room that could possibly write this, make them the protagonist.
Yeah, because the only one I can think of is Anne Rice, because she had Ramses the Damned and the Mummy, and I believe that he was POV. Oh, there's either 2 or 3 books in that series, and at least one of them was POV shared with the Mummy. But
and Anne Rice has hit all the major monsters, I believe. Obviously vampires, the witches. I don't know if she's done werewolves or like a werewolf focused book. And then come to find out, like, I had no idea she wrote mummy books.
Yes,
I'm down for that.
Yeah, she did Ramses the Damned and her mummy book. So there's a few, but it really is an underserved market. And I think, again, that comes back to the people have to engage with what's going to make a mummy story compelling. And so you have to kind of think through that whole what's compelling there. And then it's also engaging with that cultural bias of where it came from. And it's the same problem that we have with dragons and with a lot of other creatures that we've talked about, is we have a tendency towards a more Western European, US kind of bias in the way that we look at our monsters. And so it also takes people who are willing to say, well, how can I engage with culturally where these come from, religiously where they come from, and then build a story around that makes it so that it's interesting to my primary audience, who is then going to pay me for the books, because I like getting paid for what I do. But that's a good challenge. It's, talk to us in a year from now and see if we've made it. All of our mummy books. Isaac's going to write the first one.
Kitties. That's right.
Isaac's stance card is full. I nominate him.
Yeah, Isaac, write this book, man.
Isaac writes YA. He could do YA mummies.
So go ahead, Isaac.
I was also going to suggest also from the 80s, Mum Ra. He's like from Thundercats.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Initially, he's Mum Ron, this shriveled old character in a red robe, blue-skinned with red eyes, and he's all slouched and not really dangerous. And then for some reason, either he's paid for for a favor from the other minions, or he just gets mad, and then all of a sudden he gets his power from the ancient spirits of evil, which are these Egyptian idols, to get his ability to become this hulking, big Skeletor with flesh thing against the Thundercats. Apparently, the only real threat out there on Thundera. But anyhow, that was one thing that came up.
Mama was scary. I remember watching Thundercats as a kid, and I was like, that's probably besides
I remember him
Skeletor,
too.
who was kind of goofy. Like Mumra was like very menacing. I remember being like scared of this cartoon. And
he'd get all powered up and he'd scream. I remember being too little to see that. Any other episode where he was not in there was okay, but yeah, it took me growing up to finally be able to watch that stuff.
His transformation animation was awesome too, because he was like a hermit mummy with like a hood and he had a little cane, and then when it was time to whoop ass, then he turned into that big hulking thing. Usually when Lionel was pulling out the sword of Thundara and doing the Thundercats ho, and then I'm gonna go watch that show.
It was a good franchise.
So I was doing what Stabby does best. I was doing research, and there is nothing from the Mummies POV as the protagonist. Nothing comes up. Nada. The only thing that comes up.
There's 5 right here that would be like.
The only thing that comes up that was even considered, in the Google searches, the only thing that was considered to ever be from the Mummies POV was actually the ride at Universal, Mummy's Revenge.
Wow, nice.
I was like, there's just nothing here. There's nothing. There's a lot of Reddit forums on it, but that's about it.
Well, and I'm thinking there's a lot of Egyptian-based urban fantasy and that kind of thing, where they talk about mummification, or again, they might have a mummy that they're fighting or that's on there. But again, it's generally not from their point of view, because it's that how do we make them relatable? And in a lot of things, how do we make them sexy? Because that is a part of a lot of these genres, is that you have the connection between the supernatural character and usually a non-supernatural character is part of what drives it. And we haven't found that magical what makes a mummy sexy.
Oh, well, they have to turn human. I think that's Emotep. Yeah, you have to finish the transition. But I think would be interesting from a storytelling standpoint is like, you can't talk, you can't, because you've been this dried husk for millennia, but maybe you're still able to think. Maybe, you're able to not express, but like, I think you would have to be like from inside the husk, what you're feeling, how you're thinking, maybe showing aggravation and agitation about the things that you can't do because you're still in this form as you're looking for your body parts. That would be one avenue to explore if you're going to do any type of POV with a mummy. Just my 2 cents.
But then you run into the question, if they can't talk because they have, everything's desiccated with their brain work, because that would have been desiccated too. And
it's sucked right out. You have no brain. It's in the jar.
Well, you could get into the realm of possession. Like, yes, the brain might be gone on all the other stuff, but the soul is still there, and that's what goes to the afterlife. So if you're bringing that back, and I think Stoker played with that a little bit. So if you went that route,
I think mummies kind of fall into the realm of the last show that we discussed on paranormal, which was the occult.
Oh, the occult. Okay.
Mummies fit in there.
Because mummies definitely fit in there because it's a type of religion that is behind the mummification. And I think another movie that gives you a neat perspective of not just the tiers of people that can be mummified versus can't be, but also all the way up to the gods of Egypt.
Mhm.
That was a fun movie. I don't care what anybody tells me. I enjoyed that one so much because it does show you the difference between Osiris and Ra and all of them versus, the little slave boy and the little slave girl going into the afterlife with nothing to put on the scale. So I think it definitely was, I think it was a good way to show you the different classes.
Okay. So first, we got to acknowledge that the 2-pound elephant in the room, which is Isaac's kitty.
It's in the cone of shame.
That poor
Right.
kitty.
Poor buddy.
Poor little kitty.
Kitty's in the cone of shame.
Nobody puts kitty in a corner,
Except Isaac.
except for Isaac.
He put it on himself.
So
That's a smart cat.
with that being said, I feel like we've kind of talked ourselves into the end of the episode. So if you have any questions about mummies and you think we missed that we should come back for, hit us up in the comments or message Stabby on the Instagram, Twitters, and emails. That's all linked in our link tree. But with that being said, Isaac, what are you writing right now?
Currently, I'm working on plotting out book 2 of my YA story. I sent in the first one a couple months ago, and the publisher says, "Good, plot book 2." So I took them up on it, and I'm currently 15,000 words in. When I'm not doing that, I'm working through game rules for this game I've been working on. When I'm not doing that, I've been working on illustrations for a collaboration gig for a storybook.
I didn't know you were a drawer. Okay. You've been holding out on us, Isaac.
Yeah, I've been doing illustrations in Procreate with the Apple Pencil and going through tutorials and all that. I've been
Okay.
drawing for a while.
I love Procreate, and I actually follow a very awesome lady named Flo, and she sends me free brushes and stuff. I will get you hooked up with her website, and she'll teach you how to draw everything from a very realistic eyeball to a dancing spider.
So
she's
she
a
doesn't
lot of
work for
fun.
State Farm anymore?
Different Flo.
Nice.
All right. So what about you, Jana? What are your many personalities writing?
Oh, my many personalities are ever so busy. Well, I'm co-writing some stuff with you that we actually do have some. There's some mummy possibilities there. We'll have to see about that. So there's some co-writing going on with some lit RPG, and then I am working on book 2 in my urban fantasy series. Unfortunately, no mummies there. They're dealing with the fae. So
Well-
that one's coming along and will hopefully release a little bit later this year.
So the one that you and I started, we were going to do as a background project, just because we were both, wanting something to do on the side if we got stuck on projects, is Celtic based. So that one, I don't think the Celts, I don't think they did mummies.
No, it's just where we started it. So there's places we could do interesting things. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and then the one that we're waiting on from the publisher, that could potentially, just because it's so smorgasbord, you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's Proto-Earth, so you can run into any culture you want to.
That's the nice thing, is that when you're dealing with magical stuff, you can have crossover.
Yeah. All right, Teri, what are you writing and what are you narrating?
Right now, I'm splitting my writing time between trying to do a draft of my third book and also starting to work on a new It Came from the Trailer Park story. As for narrating, I'm doing one of the books by J.F. Posthumous, another urban fantasy.
Nick, now that you're back working full time, are you still drawing?
Yeah. I'm in the middle of doing the first page of Corvid and Sparrow, issue number 1. And then while I'm also working on issue 2 of the new Phantom Hawk story. So I'm doing issues 2 and 4, and there's another artist that's doing 1 and 3, so I can knock them out pretty quick. And
Nice.
then now I got a couple of ideas for some comics that I want to do, and
Okay.
mostly dealing with the Red Thread of Fate.
So Jana and I's project is temporarily on hold because we've got some other stuff. I think I've talked about James and I were working on a fantasy series too. And so I got to meet with the estate and find out where the rights stand for that. Because, I mean, I can't imagine they wouldn't want to get something like that finished to earn money as well. But obviously, without contracts, I just can't touch it. So while we wait to see, I don't want to invest too much in one world if I might have to put it on long distance pause. So I think we're up to chapter 5 on our lit RPG with Jana, which means that, you know, everything we've crossed them over and they've met a few monsters, and now the next chapter is they're going to actually start meeting people in the world. So I feel like that's a bad place or a good place to leave it because we haven't like set any cultural stuff in the world. It's a good place to pick it up because all we really need to know is the people and then go. So I think that's the first 12,000 as an introduction is a good place to go. I think it's a good stopping point. I am working on book 2 of the Curse Brigade trilogy. I had just finished recently because we're recording this in June. You'll be hearing it in July. But I just finished the complete outline of the series arc for that trilogy because I had to cut some of the stuff. Some of the stuff that James wanted to include, he was kind of a subject matter expert in, so it worked. But I know myself, if I go down the rabbit hole of research, you won't see me for a decade. It's just, I love that stuff. There's a reason I did well academically because that stuff is fun for me, but you don't make money doing research. So I've cut a lot of the sub arcs. Nick?
I'm saying you can make money doing research. It's a job.
I'm sure it's hard to get. There aren't that many of them because there's lots of nerds out there that would love them. So anyway, I am working on book 2 of the Curse Brigade. That will be, now that I've got the outline and figured out how to use, thanks to some help from my writing group, figured out how to use the transcription software on Word. So it's clunkier than Dragon. When I earn enough to buy Dragon, I will again. But so I'm going to be narrating the hell out of that and then hopefully get that trilogy wrapped up this year. That's the goal, or at least, through editing, or to editing, I should say. And that's what I'm doing. All right. With that, Isaac, where can people find you on the wild, wild interwebs?
I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. I'm also on the Three Ravens Discord server.
Okay. And as usual, all of the links will be in the show notes. Now, Jana, where can they find your mini personalities?
Well, they can find us over at opalkingdompress.com. I'm also on Amazon and Facebook and X, and I'm around. So if you look for Generate or Generate Author or Janet S. Brown, or can't talk about that one, you'll find me. I'm not hard.
So it's like the mini personalities of Jana. We could just call them Systems of the Damned, I guess, because
exactly
paranormal.
Well, it's all building into my pyramid, so that it's a pyramid scheme into which all my different personalities line up there.
Which reminds me, I need to buy some of your books and give you some of my hard-earned money.
I'm good with that.
All right, Teri, where can listeners and viewers find you?
I'm most commonly found on the Book of Faces, Facebook. And like Isaac said, also on the Three Ravens Discord occasionally, although between work and writing and narration and just trying to find some me time, I'm not there as often as I sometimes am. But
She's
hey.
like busy and stuff.
Yeah.
All right. And this is the part before I tell you how you can find us, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. So do your part, people. It really is a two-way street on the book production side of the house. And with that, you can find us on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the bits, shoots, the rumbles, the YouTubes, the Twitters, the email Blasters and Blades Podcast at gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. We have our Facebook group and Facebook page. And as previously mentioned, we link to Madam Stabby Stab on the Instagram, Twitter, and email. And we have a little game going. She shares memes in various groups that I'm in, and I try to steal them and get them on the podcast Twitter before she can get them on her own Twitter. And then she sends me hate mail. So
True. This is all true. Hashtag comma. I control the TikTok.
this is true. This is true. Is that still going?
It's still going. I just got to get in there and start separating things, but that's conversation for later.
All right. And with that, you can also find our website on Nick. Gosh, you can find our website on podcast for podcasters Spotify website, where you could support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. It is very clunky to say the link out loud. So just go to the Linktree, Blasters and Blades Podcast. And you could do that, or you could support the show more directly at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it is for the podcast. Now, I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee until it pours out of their ears. With that, Stabby, for someone who hasn't ordered, podcast grunts is the code, get you 10% off, and we get a kickback. For people who haven't ordered, since you've tried all the things, what do you recommend as a good starting point?
Roaster's choice. So if you do the roaster's choice, the actual guys that run the company will pick a coffee for you. You let them know if you like your coffee light, medium, or dark, and that's all you tell them. And they will send you their choice. And I have never been unhappy with what they've sent me. Not once. The last one was a citrusy chocolate flavored medium roast. And it was so good. It's delicious.
Okay.
That's why I was like,
that used to be my favorite coffee when I worked at the Starbucks back when I was paying for grad school, is they had one that actually tasted like brownies when you drink it. It was just a natural flavor for the coffee. That is a good mix of chocolate and coffee go well together. And if you can get it naturally, so much the better. Sadly, Starbucks stopped selling that one. That's just when I switched over to Dunkin', because without that, they didn't have their hold on me anymore. It's like I was set free. Anyway,
until you come out and visit us, there's a local place that's run by retired Navy guys called Trident, and I've never had a bad cup of coffee there. I have never had a bad cup of coffee.
And if you're on the West Coast or East Coast, in the Hampton Roads area, go out to the beach off Pacific Avenue. It's Badass Coffee, and their logo is a donkey. It is awesome. Best coffee you'll ever have. They have one where they make coffee and then they make it into like a frappuccino, but it's actual real coffee. It's not that fruity nonsense Starbucks sells. And you do mocha, banana, and coffee as a frappuccino over ice. It is the most delicious. It is like the most exciting thing you will do with your clothes on. I'm just telling you, it is.
So noted.
It is good. People, I'm just saying. Tell them JR sent you. It is delicious. So
you've obviously never gone to a Barnes & Noble with Stabby.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
There's going to be a fight.
With that, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-hosts, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom shakalaka. Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate your routinely visiting us and sharing your wit and witticisms with us. That includes you, Isaac, and Jana, and Teri. We appreciate you.
Oh, yeah. And Isaac's cat.
And Isaac's cat in the cone of shame. Moments. All right, and with that,